Alright, so today I wanted to cover the patch notes that just got released for the next PTR. The PTR is not out yet, it's just the patch notes that we have. They're having some issues getting that onto the live servers, but for now what we're going to do is just take a peek at some of these changes. I won't cover everything, but I will leave the link for this in the description if you want to read it all. I'll just be focusing on the things that I think matter to my build and my playstyle and the weapons I use, all that stuff. So I will say also I'm a bit under the weather right now. I have a cold, so apologies for that. But let's take a peek here. So there isn't a whole lot here. I mean, a few quests got fixed. We'll start here with expeditions. So the depths here, there's an interesting change here that it says fixed issue that allowed Captain Thorpe to hit players behind him. Now, what does this mean? It either means they're changing all of his attacks to not hit behind him, or maybe it's just like one attack where, like for example, his overhead swing will sometimes hit players behind him. So I wonder if they're only changing that or if it's all of his attacks, because that would really make the final boss of depths super easy for all the DPS. We'll have to see what this truly means, but this is a really interesting one. They also fixed a few bugs with Tempest. Not a whole lot of meaningful stuff here though. Apparently they increased the visibility of the AoE attack range for Nishitin. Didn't really personally have an issue with this, but I guess it's nice. They made it so the Ironwood tree awards points now. Apparently it wasn't giving points in Mutated before, but now it does. But not a whole lot here. Honestly, there's really not a lot there. Barnacles of Black Powder. This specific issue I did actually experience myself. So one of the alligators retreated, and we lost like 1 minute worth of time trying to find where this alligator was. So I'm glad they changed that. Yeah, but not a lot of changes for the expeditions. We're gonna go all the way down to this. This is a huge change here. So let's look. So what they're doing is allowing you to block with melee weapons and block like ranged attacks now. So you can see with one-handed weapons, when you block, you absorb 50% of the range attack damage, and the rest of it will damage your stamina instead. And magic weapons is 40%, so slightly better than one-handed weapons, but you get the most value from two-handed weapons, where only 30% of the damage penetrates the block. So really, really cool change. I think this will impact mostly PvP, but I can see this also helping quite a bit with PvE. So like if you have aggro of a ranged enemy, typically you wouldn't really have much options there other than losing line of sight. But now what you can do is just block, and I can see this specifically being useful for like healers, where you can just block a ranged attack by holding block with a Lifestaff, which is really interesting. I'm quite curious to see how this changes a lot of metas, really. So we'll see how big of a change this really is, though. Now with shields, they made it so you can actually move faster with while holding shields. So it's now 2 meters per second instead of 1.65. Now onto the weapons. So I won't cover the weapons I don't really care for. It seems like what they're doing though is they're buffing a lot of the abilities that that were really underused. So you know, we'll just look here at the bow. Rain of Arrows was one that was really underused. This is actually getting a pretty significant buff. So now the bleed is over double what it used to be. The cooldown is less by 5 seconds. The attack is faster, and the radius is slightly bigger. So a lot of big changes here with specifically Rain of Arrows. They also made they changed knee shot. Instead of applying a slow on leg shots to now a 10% rend on headshots, which is pretty insane. I feel like that's a buff, so that's slightly better. So yeah, there's the bow. I don't personally use the fire staff, so I won't really cover it. Great Axe didn't get too many changes. Whirlwind seems like it got slight buff. It was pretty underused before, so now you can cancel the animation earlier after the first spin instead of the second spin, which is kind of nice, I guess. Great Sword didn't get much changes. Hatchet, you have more rend from rending throw, so that's 20% rend. Pretty insane, actually, because that's a pretty easy rend to get. You just throw a hatchet, and it's 20% rend, so pretty good. Excuse me. Lifestaff, Splash of Light. The radius was reduced from 100 meters to 25 meters instead, so a lot less than what it used to be, obviously. They also increased the healing power, 60 to 80%. And personally, this won't convince me to use this because I just still feel like this is a meh perk or a meh ability to use, but we'll see. Whirling Blade was changed, so this is a pretty significant buff on the Sword and Shield. Now it's a sped up attack, increased damage, increased hitbox size. You're able to redirect the attack earlier on, and increased rend. So a lot of these buffs are like increased rend, quicker attacks, and slight increase of damage. So really cool to see this though, because it seems like more of a buff patch than a nerf patch like we had last time. So I'm glad they're doing that. They also made reverse stab slightly faster and easier to home onto enemies. I guess that's useful. Defiant stance now is better for end lag, and same as shield rush. So the end lag and animation is cut by 7 frames. I think that's what it says here. Spear Cyclone was a pretty underused ability, so it seems like now it's slightly sped up, and the damage is slightly increased. Void Gauntlet, now you can get Grit with Void Blade. So apparently this wasn't a thing before. I didn't know it. I thought you could use 300 con to get Grit, but I guess now with this update you can actually get Grit with the Void Blade if you're using 300 con. And that's really the only big change with the Void Gauntlet. Actually, there's another thing with Baleful Tether. This will make the Void Gauntlet Rapier combo may be viable, because now you can keep that tether active when swapping weapons, which is honestly, that's going to be insane, because now you can keep that empower from tether. Who knows what capabilities this will open up for a lot of builds. We'll have to see, but specifically with Rapier, I can see this being super strong, because you just get an instant empower from this. So yeah, really cool. Warhammer also got a lot of buffs here, specifically armor breaker. So like, it is insane because the rend from armor breaker was already 20%, but now they're buffing it to 30%, and that is wild. Now you can get a total of 68% rend from armor breaker, which is 30, shockwave, which is 14, and Sundering Riposte, if you have it on weapon, which is 24. So in total, that is 68% rend, which is basically rend cap already, because I believe rend cap is 70%. So if you use the Warhammer Rapier combo, you can now apply a 68% rend on your own just from these two weapons. So really, really crazy to see that. Also, they changed the Rapier Flurry. A lot of small changes here. The Flurry change, though, I think is a buff, because, so you can just read it here. Basically what they're doing is they're making the Flurry damage more consistent. So currently with the current patch and how it is right now, every hit of Flurry does more damage consecutively until the final hit, which does the most damage. But now it's just going to be a flat 60% damage per hit. So now it's a lot more viable to use in situations where you're almost certainly going to cancel the animation and you can just get a few hits in and maybe cancel it after the third hit of Flurry or cancel it after the second hit of Flurry. And now it makes more sense to do that. They also changed Tondo, so now the proper spacing upgrade, where you have to be 4 to 5 meters away to get that buff, now works just if they have a Rapier bleed on them. So I think this is a buff. I don't personally use Tondo that much, so someone correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like this is a buff though, because it's a lot more easier to get a bleed on someone than committing to like being 4 to 5 meters away. And yeah, that's basically it for the weapons and everything that I really wanted to talk about. It seems like some good weapon changes though, a lot of solid balancing things. They're giving buffs to a lot of the abilities that were underused before, and they're also giving buffs to rend. So a lot of weapons are getting increased rend, which we'll have to see what that means for the Rapier combo with some other secondaries, because obviously with that Warhammer change, that could be pretty crazy with that 30% Warhammer from Armor Breaker. But we'll see. I hope you enjoyed this video. Just to cover the patch notes here, feel free to check the description and check the patch notes for yourself. I definitely didn't cover everything here, but yeah, hope you enjoyed. See you guys later.